today we go into another long sutta. One of those suttas I deeply respect. It's quite long and difficult, but there are lots of repeated passages to remind us of important things. So I will summarize those repetitions. Kitagiri Sutta. So this name of a place. The discourse at Kitagiri. M70, so it's a kind of nice round number. It's about faith, learning, and sainthood. In fact, faith is the key word here. This sutta is unique in the sense that the Buddha is going to tell us about different kinds of saints, the 4 stages of sainthood, the stream winner, once returner, non-returner, and the arahat. Not so much in terms of these 4 stages, but in terms of what are called the 5 faculties. In terms of faith and let me see. You have a mindfulness in the center, and then you have concentration, effort, and wisdom. So these are the 5 qualities we have to balance in our practice. So in this sutta, the Buddha is going to talk about this, how these saints are categorized according to this panchindriya or pancha indriya. Pancha is 5, indriya faculties. Indriya has got different senses. Here it means faculties, meaning those things that we need to improve ourselves spiritually. Indriya also refers to our sense faculties, the 5 physical senses. They're called pancha indriya also. Now, what's interesting is if you talk about the 6 senses plus the mind, then they're called ayatanas. Ayatana, the sense basis. So these are the early Buddhist terminology. Right? This is also one of those troubling suttas, if you like. I would categorize this sutta as one of those suttas where the Buddha didn't actually convert anyone. These monks were rather bad monks. They were quite stubborn. They were arguing with the Buddha, in fact. But the teaching is there all the same. It's very long sutta. So this shows the Buddha does not merely teach to convert, but he teaches because there's something to learn. And he knows these teachings will be preserved down through the ages until our time, 2,500 years later, and we are still listening to it today. That itself is amazing. I couldn't do this in my time 50 years ago. Only like 20, 30 years ago, since 20, 30 years ago, I have this chance to really study the sutta, and I was so happy. I want to make sure that I got these things, the suttas right. So I studied Pali in Thailand, and I had to learn Thai and then learn Pali. That was helpful actually, and then translate the suttas carefully as much as I can. It's not that easy always, but it's really worthwhile. So here we are. Let's look at the sutta now. We go down to the translation. Let's go down to page 23. Yes, 23 further down. Yeah. Right here. We passed it already. 23. Okay, here we are. Kitagiri Sutta, the discourse at Kitagiri. Now, okay, I will explain the keywords as we go along. Thus have I heard. At one time, the Blessed One was wandering by stages on the teaching tour. So you see, for 9 months of the month in India, we're talking about the central Gangetic plain. For 9 months, there'll be dry season, a good time to stay outdoors. and then 3 months heavy rain. So during this 9 months, the Buddha will be wandering, teaching with a large community of monks in Kasi country. Kasi is one of the 16 great states, Mahajanapada, of those days, of the Buddha's time. Now, Kasi is a fascinating history. It's still there today, but it is called Banaras in India. Now, there's something interesting about Kasi. It is said to be one of the oldest cities in the world that is continuously populated since even the Buddha's time, before the Buddha's time. So I don't know, 4,000 to 5,000 years maybe. People were living there, and then this place is kind of the two rivers in the north and the south of it, and it's right in the middle. These two rivers are tributaries of the Ganges, and today it's really a big city, a very ancient city called Benares. This word Kasi comes from the Sanskrit root kash, meaning to shine. So Kasi means that which shines, the city that shines, a city of light. Light in the sense of learning. People go there to learn, to study religion and so on. In fact, they treat Kasi as such a holy place. And then some of these traditional Indians would say, to die is in Kasi is to die well. It's something like you go to heaven if you die there, something like that. They have that kind of respect for this place. Now, in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the first discourse, you have something interesting there. Although the sutta is taught outside Kasi, the sutta mentions Benares. So this shows that even during the Buddha's time, there was a change in the name, or there was a name added to it. It was still called Kasi, but it was also called Benares. I suppose Benares could be the bigger city, and whereas Kasi is this really ancient part of the town. This also shows us that the Dhammacakka Sutta was compiled quite late. I said compiled quite late. I didn't say it was taught late. We do not know exactly what all the details of the so-called first teaching. Definitely the Buddha would have taught all those Four Noble Truths and all those things, but much, much more. But we know the sutta was compiled quite late because it is mentioned the Benares, for example. Yeah, so these are some two things we can know on the age of the sutta. Now here, this sutta mentions Kasi, so that means the sutta probably is quite old. Probably I would call it in the middle of the middle period of the Buddha's ministry, more or less. Yeah, because you have a lot of monks there, and these monks are already they were luxurious monks basically. So you know that they did not practice the Vinaya and so on. So it was a bit later when they joined the Sangha, right? All right, so there the Blessed One addressed the monks. So now this is the teaching, okay? Bhikshus, I abstain from eating at night. All right, so the sutta starts. This is the thesis. Okay, let's go down now. What did the Buddha say further? By abstaining from eating at night, bhikshus, I am free from illness and free from mental affliction, and enjoy lightness, strength, and live in comfort. Now here you see the Buddha saying, this is what I do, and this is why I do it. So see, the Buddha is very careful about how he teaches, right? And then only he says, come now, bhikshus, come now, monks, abstain from eating at night. So you too do it. By abstaining from eating at night, you too will be free from illness and free from mental affliction and enjoy lightness and strength and live in comfort. Notice all these words which are in italics are already spoken by the Buddha. So what we see here is the Buddha is teaching us what he himself experienced, no more, no less, so to speak, right? So there's nothing like I'm better than you, or you're not as good as me, although we may feel like that because the Buddha is so wise. But the Buddha is saying, what I can become, you too can become. What I enjoy, you too can enjoy in terms of goodness. And the monks, of course, responded, yes, Bhante. The monks answered, the Blessed One in assent. Okay, let me just say a few more words about this not eating at night. Actually, it refers to not just not eating at night. It means to stop eating from noon right down to next morning at dawn when the sun rises, assuming that there are no clouds hiding the sun will kind of rise and brighten the whole place. And the Vinaya says when you put your palm out, you can see the lines on your hand. That's regarded as dawn. And technically, you can eat the monks at this. And the monks, of course, by that time, the monks will be going their arms round, and then they eat only one meal. Okay, most of the forest monks, they just eat one meal. They're so used to it, and then they sit down, meditate, right? But technically, of course, they can eat as soon as the sun rises. They have breakfast, and then they can have one more meal, kind of before noon. The meal will end at noon, because this is the normal precept day rule for eating. Of course, for lay people, the Buddha didn't make this rule. It is not part of the 5 precepts, but it is something we can practice. Now, many of us, you may have seen your parents or relatives or some very pious Buddhists taking vegetarian food on full moon, new moon days. But this is a later development. It is probably Chinese Buddhism. This is not as good as actually fasting, right? So if you really want to keep the precept on the precept day, it's better to recite the 8 precepts, which are the 5 precepts, but instead of the 3rd precept, on the precept day, no sex at all. You don't think about sensual pleasures at all. So be careful not to watch any shows that will kind of ruffle up the mind. So that also is part of the precept. Then we wouldn't go shopping that day. So we buy things earlier to prepare ourselves. It's a kind of retreat day. The 8 precepts are meant for retreat. You can do it at home or anywhere. The idea is to sit quietly, read the sutta or meditate. You can do this in the open air even, all right? So it's a kind of retreat day. That's what the 8 precepts are for, and that's what the full moon, new moon days were originally for. Of course, this is a choice you make. If you can do this, it's wonderful. At least be more calm that day, and then that will kind of help you become a stronger person spiritually, right? So this is about not taking more than what is needed. Is also for your health. You'll find as you grow older, after 60, you find no matter how little you eat, you still put on weight. That is what is surprising sometimes, right? Because we don't use up that energy, and so it is stored as fat. So eat mindfully, eat healthily, and if you don't have to eat at night, you don't, or cut down, right? So of course, for the monks, it's different. The Buddha encouraged them, and it is the rule. But from this sutta, it seems that this rule is uh, not introduced yet, right? So it's very interesting, because if the rule is introduced, then the Buddha wouldn't have to say all these things. So here you see again the Buddha is very gentle. He's coaxing them. He says, "This is good for you. This is why you should not take food in the afternoon and at night." You find from the way the sutta is presented, the rule has not been made, but the Buddha was like already encouraging the monks not to take food in the evenings anyway, in at night, right? So in that sense, this sutta also is early. Okay, let's go on and see. Then the Blessed One, wandering in Kasi country by stages, eventually arrived at Kasi market town named Kitagiri. There the Blessed One lived at or outside the Kasi market town of Kitagiri. So here, of course, the Buddha lived in the forest, and this is where our story starts. So notice, before this, the Buddha already announced to the monks about not taking food at night, right? So it's like he's making these rules here as the Sangha grew, see? Partly also not to burden the lay people, right? Now we come to a new scenario. Now at that time, the monks called Assaji and Punabbasu were residing at Kitagiri. Okay, where is Kitagiri? Kitagiri is a market town near Kasi. Market town means it is a prosperous place. Market town normally grow at crossroads where people have to stop to rest as they journey, and then there are people selling food and things there. So slowly this crossroads grew into a town. So Kitagiri is such a town, and these monks are staying there. And once you see this kind of monks staying there, it means they want to have the benefit of the wealth of the people. The commentary also mentions these two monks. They have a lot of followers, by the way, these two monks. So they must be quite charismatic people. So they are staying in this area because the weather there are two monsoons, and they get a lot of rain, so they can have 3 crops of rice in a year. So there's a lot of food also. So that's why they're living there. So you can have some idea what kind of monks they are. They're very worldly monks. All right. All right. So then a number of monks went to the monks Assaji and Punabbasu. Notice it's a different Assaji. It's quite a common name. Asa means horse. Aswajit in Sanskrit. G is a kind of, it can mean a champion, a conqueror, or just a respectful term. So it's name of quite a common name. Punabbasu is the other person. These are two friends. So these monks went to these two monks, the monks from the Buddha, they went to see these two monks who are leaders of other monks, and said this to them: also, the Blessed One and the community of monks abstain from eating at night. Okay, notice this is a rule already, right? By abstaining from eating at night, also, they too are free from illness and free from mental conflict, and enjoy lightness. Lightness meaning they left healthy weight, as well as you have this good sense of feeling of lightness, buoyancy, and strength, right? You find you don't eat too much, you have more strength. If you have too much, you feel sleepy and lazy. And live in comfort. You live good. You feel good. So these monks who came from the Buddha tell these two monks and their followers, come now, awuso. This awuso plural, brothers or friends, awuso, abstain from eating at night. By abstaining from eating at night, you too also will be free from illness and free from mental affliction, and enjoy lightness and strength and live in comfort. Right? So they convey this message to the two monks. See, what's interesting here is you notice the monks went to see these two monks instead of these two monks coming to see the Buddha. Normally, the monks will be very happy the Buddha is nearby and they're going to see the Buddha. So you can see here these two monks, they are monks for not the right reasons. They don't really respect the Buddha. They just want to have an easy life. And in India today, you find lots of these so-called sadhus. In fact, when I write to my Indian friends, I usually avoid the word sadhu because it doesn't have a very good connotation in India. The word is good, but The sadhu is not. The sadhu are simply holy people. Usually they're quite lazy people who don't want to work, so just put on some kind of robes or look different, keep long hair, and you'll get free food for lunch. And people, if you behave funny enough, people respect you. And you talk funny enough, you get even more followers. You might even become an international guru. See? So this is the thing about India. You have a lot of these imaginative, charismatic people, right? So we're talking about that kind of background at this time. So here you are, you have this Assaji and Punabbasu who work as a pair. Now, so what happened now? 4.2. When this was said, the monks Assaji and Punabbasu said this to the monks. So they replied, "We also eat in the evening, in the morning, in the day, outside the proper time." In other words, they say, "Oh, we eat anytime we want," right? By eating in the evening, in the morning, in the day, outside the proper time, we are free from illness and free from mental affliction and enjoy lightness and strength and live in comfort. So what you see here is they actually use the very words of the Buddha and say, yeah, we're doing all this, and we're getting all these same benefits. All right. Then 4.3, why should we abandon what is visible right now, right here, and run after what is time bound? Or you can translate the Pali as, why should we give up an immediate benefit for one that has not yet come? So you have two sentences. We shall eat in the evening, in the morning, in the day, outside the proper time. Right? So despite these monks passing the message to Assaji and Punabbasu, they were quite stubborn. They rationalized. They used the Buddha's own words and twisted it around and said, look, yeah, we're doing this, and we're enjoying good life. Okay? All right, let's see what happens next. 4.3, further down. 5. Okay, now since the monks were unable to convince the monks Assaji and Punabbasu, they approached the Blessed Ones. They went back to the Buddha, and then now to save time, I will just summarize. So they reported back to the Buddha and they said, okay, this is what these two monks said. They say they're enjoying good health and all those good things you mentioned by eating anytime they want, right? So now, so once you have decided, you have this situation, these monks have broken the rules and they're not going to listen to the Buddha. And this is where you see the Buddha very proactive. He's going to deal with it. He's going to teach these monks, right? Something, whether they follow him or not, it's up to those monks, right? So now we go on to 6. Before that, so the Buddha will summon them. Okay, so this is what number 6 says. Okay, let's go a bit more, push up a bit, 6 upwards. Push up, please, the slide. Ratna. Then the Blessed One addressed a certain monk thus, come now, monk, tell the monks Assaji and Punabbasu, the teacher venerable summons you. Yes, Bhante, the monk answered. So this is very, very common. The Buddha will summon those monks or the monk who didn't listen to him, right? And then here you have this story, how the monks went there and then told the 2 monks, say the teacher calls you, and they say, okay, right? And then they come to see the Buddha. So at least you see here, they do come to see the Buddha, and then that's where the lesson actually begins, the interesting part of our sutra. No? So this is where we are heading for. So did they come to see the Buddha? And then let's see what happens now, further down. So they approach the Buddha, and then further down, please. The slide, go down. So the Buddha asked them, is it true These monks went to see you, and then you told them that you are not going to keep to this rule, and you eat whenever you like. And then this Assaji and Punabbasu, of course, here they have their own following, quite a big group. We're not told how many, but it's in the notes about them. The sutta doesn't give the details though. So at least here you see they are honest with the Buddha. They say yes, Bhante. They say yes. They said those things, and they you see another interesting thing here is this: they use the very words of the Buddha. These are actually very positive words. What is visible right here, and meaning we should practice whatever is present before us. Be mindful of that. That was the idea in meditation, and not to follow worldly things that is time bound, that keeps us in samsara. So they twisted that teaching to say, in other words, we have food right here, so why do we worry about evening and so on? So we will live quite comfortably the way we like. So now comes the teaching. Okay, this is the difficult part, right? So I'll try to explain it as carefully as I can. 6.6. So the teaching begins. The Buddha is going to talk about feelings. The Buddha is going to explain why it is good for the monks not to take food at night, right? He's going to focus on the nature of feelings. 6.6. Bhikshus, have you ever known me to have taught the Dhamma in this way? Whatever this person feels, whether pleasant or painful or neutral, unwholesome states lessen in him, and wholesome states grow in him. This is no Bhante. All right, so the Buddha begins very carefully, analyze the teaching in great detail. So in simple terms, the Buddha asks, have I ever told you that whatever you feel, the three kinds of feeling, pleasant, painful, neutral. When you feel any of these three feelings, any one of these three feelings, unwholesome states, negative states, will lessen, will be less negative states, and then good state, wholesome states will arise. Have you ever thought like that? Yeah? In other words, if by, say, just not taking food at night, it'll be good for you, but nothing will be bad for you. He didn't just stop like that. There are other teachings connected. So here, the Buddha is trying to say the nature of feelings, right? They don't bring bad karma or good karma by themselves. It is how you react to them. That's the meaning here, all right? But anyway, he begins very simply. He says, have I ever thought like this? Have I told you that pleasant feeling, painful feeling, neutral feeling, when you feel these things, unwholesome, bad karma will be less and good karma will be more. Have I told you like that? That is too general a remark, right? So of course not. The Buddha never thought like that. Then the Buddha continues, what now, bhikshus? Haven't you known me to have taught the Dhamma in this way? Okay, now it says, this is how I teach the Dhamma, all right? So first, here, when someone feels a certain kind of pleasant feeling, when we feel something nice, unwholesome states grow in him and wholesome states lessen. All right, so this of course happens, right? So you feel something nice, then you got attached to it, then of course negative states will grow, positive states will become less. But when someone feels another kind of pleasant feeling, there's another good feeling, unwholesome state will lessen in him and wholesome states will grow. For example, when we meditate, we feel very peaceful, which is a good feeling. Then wholesome states become more and unwholesome states become less. So here the Buddha is saying, It's your attitude towards the pleasant or unpleasant feeling that decides the nature of karma. So here the Buddha is talking about pleasant feeling. Now the Buddha talks about the two occasions of painful feelings. He applies the same logic to painful feelings. Now here, when someone feels a certain kind of painful feeling, unwholesome states grow in him and wholesome states lessen, right? So for some people, when they feel pain, bad states arise, negative states, they get angry or whatever. And so the good states become less. But when one feels another kind of painful feeling, it's just the opposite. The unwholesome state will lessen in him, and the wholesome state, the good states will grow. Like, we observe the precept on not taking food after noon, right? You feel hungry, but then, although you feel hungry, you feel good about it. You feel you're keeping the precept, and then your body becomes light and so on, right? So you find there are these two different situations. Here, basically, the Buddha is showing the two monks that their logic is wrong, right? And the same applies with neutral feeling. Here, when someone feels a certain kind of neutral feeling, unwholesome states grow and wholesome states lessen. But when one feels another kind of neutral feeling, wholesome states lessen in him and unwholesome states lessen in him and wholesome states grow, right? So even in the case of a neutral feeling, sometimes the bad feelings may arise more. Sometimes the good feelings may arise. It depends on your attitude. It can be neutral. Neutral, that means you don't see it being something pleasurable or not pleasurable. Neutral feeling. Right? You're sitting and you're feeling very still, very peaceful. That's neutral feeling, And so you feel good, right? Because you are by nature a good person. So these are the three kinds of feelings that the Buddha uses to explain, to show the Assaji and Punabbasu that their logic is wrong. Okay? Now let's see. After this is number 8, right? So we'll stop here since it's 9 o'clock, and then we'll come back for 5 minutes time to continue. All right, now in section 8, in this new section, the Buddha is going to talk about right views regarding feelings, and he's going to show that he speaks from his own wisdom, his own awakening. Look at verse 8. And bhikshus, if I were not to have known, not to have seen, not to have understood, not to have realized, not to have touched, meaning not to have attained with wisdom thus. So in other words, he's directly experienced awakening. Thus, here when someone feels a certain kind of pleasant feeling, unwholesome states increase in him and wholesome states lessen. Would it be fitting for me, not knowing that, to say, abandon such a kind of pleasant feeling? And the monk said, no, Bhante. Now the language is a bit tricky, Buddha is saying, now if I were not awakened, if I did not experience this, and I tell you about this nature of pleasant feeling, that unwholesome states will increase and a wholesome state will lessen. If that were not true and I'm not awakened, would I tell you abandon such a kind of pleasant feeling? Don't build up that kind of pleasant feeling because it's not good for you, right? So what he's saying here is that if he does not know it, and he tells it without understanding, without knowledge, it will not be helpful. It will not be true, right? So of course the monk said that's not the case. Whenever the Buddha teaches something, he knows what he's saying, right? So that's the next part, 8.2. The 8.2 is the positive aspect of 8.1. So 8.2, but bhikshus, because I have known, seen, understood, realized, touched with wisdom thus. Here, when someone feels a certain kind of pleasant feeling, unwholesome states increase in him, and wholesome states lessen. That I therefore say, abandon such a kind of pleasant feeling. So he's telling now, right? He's telling the two monks, says, look, taking food at night may be nice, it may be good for you, but then it's going to bring some unwholesome states. And then the good states will be less. That is why I'm saying abandon that kind of pleasant feeling. Don't take food in the evening, right? So, and then it goes on, 8.3, and bhikshus, if I were not to have known, not to have seen, not to have understood, not to have realized, not to have touched with wisdom. Thus, here, when someone feels a certain kind of pleasant feeling, unwholesome states lessen in him and wholesome states increase. Would it be fitting for me, not knowing that, to say attain and dwell such a kind of pleasant feeling? Again, the monk said, no, Bhante. Here meaning, if he does not know that this pleasant feeling is something that is helpful, he does not know this, and yet he say, okay, practice it. It's not true. He wouldn't do that. So the meaning is that he knows what he's saying. Whatever he teaches is from his own awakening. This is what 8.4 confirms. Okay, so 8.4, the Buddha says, but bhikshus, notice but is there. But bhikshus, because I have known. Okay, let's just take the word known. The rest are all like they are synonyms. So he knows, he's awakened, that when someone feels a certain kind of pleasurable feeling, unwholesome states lessen in him, wholesome states increase. For example, in meditation, you feel good, you feel joyful, right? So negative states are less, positive states are more. Then the Buddha would say, attain and dwell in such a pleasurable feeling. Go on with your meditation, right? Of course, the monks would say, yes. Bhante, the monks would agree, you know? Okay, so now in the next part 9, the Buddha talks about in the same way about painful feelings. So here, let me explain in a normal way, all right? The Buddha is saying here, okay, when it comes to unpleasant feelings, even painful feelings like not taking food, because when you don't take food, you feel hungry, it's not a very nice feeling. Even then, I know what I'm saying, the Buddha says, right? If I don't know and I say it, of course, it would not be wise. But here I know that you may feel a little bit of painful feeling, but then it'd be good for you, all right? But if it's not good for you, then I'll say abandon this kind of feeling. Then that's 9.3 is when it is something that is helpful for you, right? Like this not taking food at night. You feel a little uncomfortable, but it's good for you. So therefore, attain and dwell in this kind of state. In other words, practice this. Keep to this, because this is good for you. So of course the monks agree, right? And then further down, the Buddha talks about neutral feeling in the same way. Certain neutral feelings can be good. Some may not be good, depending on how you practice. So you should be wise enough to know. So the Buddha is saying, if the neutral feeling helps you to become better in your practice, then you should cultivate that kind of neutral feeling. Okay, so I've simplified this kind of difficult Pali. The Pali here is quite difficult in this sutta, right? Now, the Buddha goes on to tell the monks to be diligent. They must try hard. They must work hard. Don't give up, right? So we go down to 11 now, because I've summarized all the points up to number 10. But bhikshus, I do not say of all monks that they still have to do their duties with diligence. Nor do I say of all monks that they do not have to do their duties with diligence anymore. Okay, with this style is called the apophatic style, the negative, using the negative, not this, not that. So here the Buddha is saying, I don't say that every monk must continue to practice hard. Nor do I say you don't have to, all right? So now he's saying this because of the next part, number 12. What bhikshus, I do not say of those monks who are arahats. You see, that's why I say I don't say that all monks should work hard, because arahats don't have to do it. The arahats already are enlightened. They have done their part. They don't have to be told what to do. It's not that they don't need to do. They do not have to be told. That's the difference. Why? Because they are arahats. So these 4 lines, these three, 4 lines define the arahats. Those with mental influxes destroyed, those who have lived a holy life, done what is to be done, laid down the burden, reached their own goal, destroyed the fetters of being, freed through right knowledge. Okay, in other words, they're already awakened. The arahats are awakened. They still have to do their duty with diligence. I do not, do not say this. I do not tell the arahats, you still got to meditate, you still got to keep the rules. Why? Because they have diligently done their duties. They are no more capable of being negligent. The arahats will never break the rules. So the Buddha doesn't need to tell them, right? So if you can't follow what has been said previously, just look at the last line. The Buddha is saying, I don't tell the arahats what to do or what not to do, because they already are awakened. They're not capable of being negligent. They won't be lazy. They won't break the rules. Okay, so that's quite clear now, right? Now the Buddha goes on to talk about those who are on the path, but not yet arahats. Now the arahats are called aseka. Aseka means non-trainers. They have finished the training, the adepts. There are those on the path who are called learners. These are the stream winner, once returner, non-returners. Okay, they're called learners because they still got a bit more to learn. They're not arahats yet. So arahat don't have to learn anymore because they're already awakened. They will never break the rules. They know what to do. They will naturally keep the precepts. 13 are about the learners, the seka. Bhikshus, I say of such monks who are learners, whose mind have not yet reached the goal, not awakened yet, no? Who are still aspiring to the supreme security from bondage. Supreme security of bondage refers to nirvana. That they still have to do their duties with diligence. They still got to practice, keep the precepts. Okay. What is the reason for this? Because when those venerable ones make use of suitable dwellings and associate with spiritual friends and harmonize their spiritual faculties, they may, by realizing for themselves through direct knowledge, here and now attain and dwell in the supreme goal of the holy life, for the sake of which sons of families rightly go forth from the household life into the homeless life. Seeing this fruit of diligence for these monks, bhikshus, I say that they still have to do their duties with diligence. Now here it's a bit difficult. There's a way of reading the suttas. You have to learn to see the passages, the phrases as a set. Remember, this is the oral tradition. So we have the difficulty of the oral tradition for us who are scribal tradition, who are used to reading, because all these were spoken, right? So you find the Buddha has to lay out it in some detail. Now, let me simplify. So here the Buddha is saying these learners who are stream winners, non-returners, stream winners, once returner, non-returners, they are not yet totally awaken. So they still have some way to go. And what's that? They make use of suitable dwellings. They live in proper places where they can practice. And they have proper friends, proper fellowship with good people. And they harmonize their spiritual faculties. These harmonize their spiritual faculties have been underlined because this talks about meditation, balancing all the faculties, faith, effort, mindfulness, concentration, wisdom. Balance it up so that they will progress quickly and attain the goal, right? So they're still not yet completely awakened, so they have to be told, right? So there are two kinds of people here. You got the arahats and the learners. The Buddha doesn't have to tell the arahats. The Buddha still tell the learners. Here the Buddha is hinting, because in the case of Assaji and Punabbasu, they're not even learners. So definitely they have to be told, have to be reminded. So here the Buddha is telling of Assaji Punabbasu and his followers and the monks present and telling us today. There are these different kinds of saints, if you like, right, besides the arahats. And they still need to be told what to do because they're not awakened yet. And this is, there are 7 kinds of them. Section 14. Bhikshus, there are these 7 kinds of individuals to be found in the world. What are the 7? Okay, this is the famous classification, 7 kinds of saints. Okay, let's go down now. 15. Okay, still 14. So then these are 7. You don't hear about this very often, but it's given here in the sutta. The first one is, first 1 and 2, they are arahats. 2 kinds of arahat. The first kind, one freed both ways, or dual freed. Ubato baga vimutta. Ubato means both, baga sides, or both parts. Vimutta, freed. The wisdom freed, panya vimutta. Okay. Now I will later go to the details who they are. I'll just read the names to you so that you are familiar with them. 3 and 4, you have body witness and then view attainer. Kaya saki, body witness, kaya saki. They witness with their body. Whenever you see body, he has to do, meaning personal experience. They experience for themselves. They attain that very high state in meditation, kaya. Saki, Malay, sakshi. Sanskrit is sakshi. No? So, Malay sakshi means witness. The view attainer, ditthipata, attain right views. And then you have the faith freed, saddhā vimutta, the truth follower, Dhamma Nusari, Dhamma and Anusari. Yeah? A faith follower, Saddha Nusari. So these 3 to 7, they are not arahats, they are the learners. No? Okay, now the Buddha explains each of these terms one by one. First of all, the arahat, one freed both ways. And bhikshus, what sort of individual is one freed both ways? Here, bhikshus, a certain person dwells, having touched with the body those liberations, peaceful and formless that transcend form. And his mental influxes are destroyed through his seeing with wisdom. This bhikshus is called one freed both ways. Here, touch with the body means he has attained the high jhanas, including the formless jhanas. So it's a deep meditator like Sariputta Moggallana, right? And they also have gained wisdom. In other words, they have all these wonderful powers, as well as the jhanas, and they also have overcome ignorance. So these are the highest of the arahats. I do not say of such a monk that he still has to do his duties with diligence. What is the reason for this? He has diligently done his work. He is incapable of being negligent. Here the Buddha made extra effort to tell Assaji Punabbasu, there are these arahats. They have already attained this high level jhanas as well as wisdom, and they are free both ways. They don't have to be told. But Assaji Punabbasu has to be told because they have not reached the level. So the Buddha is very clear. You have not reached the level, so I have to tell you this, right? But he's going to repeat this 7 times to remind this the importance of the different kinds of saints. Next, further down, Arahat, the wisdom freed. Okay. This one is a person that the Arahat, he's not able to meditate very deeply, but he is enough for him to free himself from ignorance and so become an Arahat. He doesn't have great psychic powers like Moggallana. And Bhikshus, what sort of individual is the wisdom freed? Here, Bhikshus, a certain person dwells not having touched the body with the body, those liberations, peaceful and formless, that transcend form, but his mental influxes are utterly destroyed through his seeing with wisdom. This individual bhikshu is called the wisdom free. So although he did not attain high jhanas, but he's able to get enough samadhi to overcome all the defilements and become an arhat. So same thing in this case, the Buddha doesn't have to tell such arhats to do the duty because they're not capable of breaking the rules, right? So they all awaken, just like the Buddha. Now the Buddha goes on to talk about the non-returners, okay, the body witness. 17. And bhikshus, what sort of individual is a body witness? Here, bhikshus, a certain person dwells, having touch with the body, those liberations, okay, further down, peaceful and formless that transcend form. But, okay, this is an important word, but only some of his mental influxes are destroyed through his seeing with wisdom. Here, some meaning the lower fetters are destroyed, the 5 lower fetters. So they are non-returners. So this is called body witness because they've attained jhanas and they're able to overcome desire and hatred. So they've become non-returners. So here, notice the strong indriya faculty is wisdom. Okay. So I say of such a monk that he still has to do his duties with diligence. What is the reason for this? When the Venerable One makes use of suitable dwelling and associates with spiritual friends and harmonizes his spiritual faculties, he would, by realizing for himself through direct knowledge here and now, attain and dwell in the supreme goal of life, for the sake of which the sons of family rightly go forth from the household life into the homeless life. Seeing this fruit of diligence for such a monk, I say he still has to do his duties with diligence. Now you imagine this whole section here, all these 5 lines simply mean that they have to practice meditation and balance up their faculties, faith, and so on. So they still have to practice. So the Buddha reminds them that they have to work, they have to try a little harder, right? So this is he's a meditator, right? The body witness, but he's not broken all the fetters yet. Now we come to the view attainer. And what bhikshus sort of individual is the view attainer? Here bhikshus, a person dwells not having touched the body with those liberations, peaceful and formless that transcend form. But only some of his mental faculties are destroyed through seeing with wisdom. And he has examined and fully understood with wisdom. Okay, notice here the faculty is wisdom. This is the person who uses wisdom to reflect on the teaching. Right? Wisdom prone, if you like. and teachings proclaimed by the Tathagata, this individual bhikshu is called Vyuhatena. So this is the kind of person who reflects on the teaching and practices. Okay, but he doesn't attain the higher, all the higher jhanas. So only some of the mental influxes are destroyed. It's not an arahat yet. So it may be any of the lower ones, maybe a stream winner or or once returner. Okay, so he still has to do his duties, balance his faculties, so that he has to be told, he has to be reminded, so that he will practice and gain awakening. So this is the Vyuhatena, meaning this person works with wisdom. Now comes faith. This number 5. Faith freed. Freed by faith. Further up a bit, please. Push up the slide a bit. 19. No, no. Up, yeah. Some more, yeah. Okay. 19. And bhikshus, what sort of individual is the faith freed? Okay, 19. Here, bhikshus, a certain person dwells not having touch with the body, those liberations, peaceful and formless, transcending form. So here, this person is not a good meditator. He might not able to meditate. And only some of his mental influxes are destroyed through having seen them with wisdom. So there is still some wisdom, but not much. But his faith, okay, here the keyword is faith. His faith is planted, rooted, and established in the Tathagata. Notice here, agricultural metaphors, right? The faith is planted and rooted. So here, the keyword is faith. He has faith. So he has a bit of wisdom, but he has great faith. He practices with faith, and he attains the path. So he still has to practice. This kind of person still has to practice, right? So the Buddha again is reminding the two monks. He said, look, you have this first person who practices based on faith, and then he will reach the path. But he has to practice. So he cannot be lazy, in other words, like the two monks. Okay, next, 20. Down 0.3. No? So here again, that the Buddha is saying he has to harmonize the spiritual faculties. He has to practice meditation, balance up all the faculties so that he will progress and attain awakening, or attain the path rather, through his mindfulness. Now we have number 6, the truth follower. Here, bhikshus, what sort of individual is a truth follower? Here, a certain person dwells not having touched the body with those liberations. So now you can guess already. It is not having touched, that means no meditation, very weak meditation. Okay? But only some of his defilements are overcome, right? So not all the fetters are overcome. He's still not yet fully awakened. It's a bit of typo here, let me note. Okay. So this truth follower, again, he works with wisdom. Okay. So here, the 5 faculties are listed. Faculty of faith, effort, mindfulness, concentration, wisdom. They are balanced, but he directs his mind to wisdom. He's the kind of like, he likes to study suttas and reflect on it and so on, and becomes a stream winner, once returner, through doing this. But he still has to go on practicing. He still has to do his task with diligence because it's not yet an arahat. This is number 6, the Dhammanusare. Right, we have in the Anicca Chakku Sutta, it's mentioned the stream winner can be this kind of person. In other words, he uses his wisdom to reflect on impermanence. Now, number 7, the last one, uses faith. Right? He's not very wise, not very clever, but he has faith in the teachings. So this one is a very wonderful teaching, because we often say, oh, Buddhism, there's no teaching on faith. Not true at all. If a person has faith in impermanence, it will work, right? So this is the section 21. And bhikshus, what sort of individual is a faith follower? Look at the word faith follower, right? Saddhā and then anusari. Okay. Here, bhikshus, a certain person dwells not having touched the body with those liberation. No jhanas. Okay. Only some of the mental influxes are destroyed through having seen them with wisdom, right? So wisdom is always there. But, okay, this is the special qualification I think most of us will love to hear. I would like to put it in our own way. I'm going to use we here, just like you and I. We have just a bit of faith in the Tathagata, in the Buddha, just a bit of love for him. So even in the same sutta, the Anicca Chakku Sutta, S25.1, the Buddha says the same thing. If you just have a bit of faith in the teacher, here the Buddha means if you reflect on impermanence, if you really have faith in the teacher and you have respect and love for the Buddha, then you should accept the teaching on impermanence. The Buddha is not saying just worship me. He's saying follow this teaching on impermanence. Right? If you can accept this, you will attain true meaning in this life also. Right? Because in this case, we're using the faculty of faith. Those great arahats, they use wisdom. Right? But in the case of streamliness, you can use faith if you want. Okay. So now that section on the 5 faculties are over, we come to nearly the ending already. We come to the 12th step, discipleship. Now that the Buddha is going to show these 2 bad monks, they lack this quality, the 12 steps. Let's go down, please. Go down to the 12 steps. Yeah, here we are. These are the 12-step discipleship, meaning what we should do if you really want to learn so that you reach the path. Because I do not say that final knowledge, meaning awakening, is achieved all at once. There is no sudden enlightenment. Sorry to the Mahayana. No such thing as sudden enlightenment. So this is the passage. So if you want to know where the Buddha says no such thing as sudden enlightenment, section 22 of M7T. On the contrary, says the Buddha, final knowledge is achieved by gradual training, by gradual practice, by gradual progress. And how, bhikshus, is final knowledge achieved gradually? Okay, these are the 12 steps, right? These 12 steps also are found in the Chanki Sutta. So we begin by having faith in the teacher. Here, bhikshus, he who has faith in the teacher approaches him. So this faith, you have faith, for example, you all have faith here, and then you approach your computer so you can hear the suttas. Approaching him, approaching the Buddha, the teacher, he draws near to him. So you don't sit far away, okay? You go near, because in the Buddha's time, you have to listen carefully, see? So you have to go near to him. So you find in the Dharma talks, usually those who are really serious, they will sit in front. I normally like to sit right in front, okay? Because I want to make sure I'm not distracted by people talking to me. I want to hear the teacher clearly. So we should draw near to the teacher. That's effort number 2, right? Effort number 3, drawing near to him, he lends his ear. We listen carefully. We don't just sit in front and smile. We listen carefully. We don't look at the phone, right? We listen carefully. Because now Now Mara follows us wherever we go, even when we go into meditation retreat. If you bring your phone along, Mara is there, right? So here we switch off the phone, we listen to the teacher. 4, he who lends his ear listens to the Dharma, right? So we don't just direct our ears to the teacher, we listen to the Dharma. 5, having listened to the Dharma, he remembers it or memorizes it. We take the trouble to remember it, make notes. Step 5, having listened to the Dharma, he investigates the meaning. We find out what's the meaning of this. Some words I don't understand, right? I want to know more. 7, he investigates their meaning and then reflectively accepts the teaching. We reflect and then we accept it. You see, this is wonderful, sadhu. Investigation of meaning and then accept it. Further down, go down some more. 8, okay. 8, having reflectively accepted the teaching, then this desire to practice, the willpower arises in him. We have strength. We want to know more. We want to practice. That's 9. When desire or willpower has arisen in him, he exerts himself. What makes you come here and sit here and listen? And you want to know. So there is this willpower in you. There's this desire to know. That's your good karma. 11, 10 rather. Having exerted himself, having made the effort to come and listen, he weighs, harmonizes his practice. Right? We balance up our practice. Having weighed his practice, he is resolute. He keeps on doing it. We keep on moving it. And when we keep on doing it, we don't give up. Then we will realize the ultimate truth. Notice here, with your own body, in other words, by yourself, and see it by penetrating it with wisdom. Wisdom will arise in you. You begin to know what's right, what's wrong, and you see the truth. Now the Buddha directly turns to the 2 monks and scolds them and tells them, look, you don't have these 12 stages of discipleship. That's the problem, right? But bhikshus, here the Buddha is addressing Assaji and Punabbasu and his followers. There is no faith here, right? So for you, you have no faith. There's no approaching a teacher, no drawing near, no lending ear, no listening to the Dharma, no remembering of the Dharma, no investigating, no reflecting to accept the truth, no desire to practice, no exertion, no effort made, no weighing of the faculties, the balance, no resolve. Now, these are very strong words, 24.2. Bhikshus, you have lost your way. Bhikshus, you have been going the wrong path. Hollow man, how, where are we now? Okay. How far you have strayed, bhikshus, from the Dharma and the Vinaya, right? So notice here the Buddha doesn't mince words. He tells the monks, look, you have lost your way. Come back, basically. But these monks are still stubborn. See, because look at the conclusion here, 25. The Buddha says, bhikshus, there is a 4-line exposition, a 4-line teaching. When it is recited, a wise man will quickly understand it through wisdom. I shall recite it, I shall show it to you, monks. You will understand it from me. Now, so up to this point, these monks were listening, but even up to this point, the 2 monks said, but Bhante, who are we to be knowers of the Dharma? Notice, they still do not have faith. They feel they won't know the Dharma. Who are we to know the Dharmas? So notice how interesting this is. Very often, many of us, you hear a lot of people say this, how can I know the Dharma is so deep and so on? That is why I never want to hear this. We should never talk like this. We should be curious. If we don't know something, work to find out, all right? So we should not say, I don't know. I cannot know. I'm not that clever. If you are not clever, you have to learn to be clever, right? So this is what the Buddha tells such people, even today. This is amazing in terms of time, bhikshus, even with a teacher who dwells concerned with material things and heir to material things, attached to material things, such haggling by his followers would not be proper. There's a bit of humor here. No? The Buddha is saying if you have even a nasty, bad teacher who only thinks of money and who uses Buddhism to get money, he won't allow his students to haggle with him. In other words, like, say, look, I don't know Dhamma, don't teach me so much, it's so difficult, He said, even a bad teacher will not have students like this. So don't do this. Notice the Buddha is so patient here. All right, now last section, further down, 27. Okay, so if we get this, we will do this. If we don't get this, we won't do it. Right? So this is the Buddha said this, you can't haggle, you don't have a ask for discount in practicing of the Dhamma. What more bhikshus with the Tathagata who is totally detached from material things? Right? So I'm teaching you. How can you haggle with me? All right, then the Buddha gives the 4 statements. Bhikshus, for the disciple with faith who's intent on fathoming the teacher's teaching, they're curious to know the Dhamma. He should be one who conducts himself in accordance with the Dhamma thus. We should reflect in this way. The Blessed One is the teacher, I am a disciple. The Blessed One knows, I do not know. Okay, this line is controversial. The scholars who say this line is not found in the Chinese, so probably this line was added later. I know these are difficult lines. Now, by the fact that they are difficult, I would suggest they are true. If you reflect, this is what we often think of ourselves. When we look at the Dhamma, we say, oh, the Buddha is a great teacher. I'm only a follower. So the Buddha knows I do not know. We often think this way. So in that sense, the sutta is correct. We don't have to correct the sutta. Right? We don't have to change it. So that's point number 1. Okay. Now let's look at point number 2. Bhikshus. For a disciple with faith who's intent on fathoming the teacher's teaching, the teacher's teaching is nourishing and vitalizing. If you follow the Dhamma, you feel the energy, you feel that great teaching growing inside you. You are yourself growing, changing, becoming wiser. Bhikshus, for a disciple with faith who is intent on fathoming the teacher's teaching, he should be one who conducts himself in accordance with the Dhamma. Thus, willingly I will let only skin, sinews, and bones remain. Let my body utterly dry up in flesh and blood too, but there will be no end in my effort until I have won what can be won by personal strength, effort, personal striving. Here the Buddha is quoting what he himself said before awakening, when he was going to practice the Dhamma. He says, even if my body and everything become dry up, I will still practice to my last drop, something like that. Yeah, I will not give up. There'll be no end in my effort. Right. So he's telling the monks, don't give up. And finally, for bhikshus, for the disciple with faith, who is intent on fathoming the Buddha's fathoming the teacher's teaching, one of 2 fruits is to be expected. Either direct knowledge, arahathood in this very life, or if there is any residue of clinging, non-returning. So this is like the Four Noble Truths, the path. If you put in the effort, he tells the monks, you either attain arahathood itself in this life, or you become non-returners. If you still have clinging, if you practice in this way as a monk. This is what the Blessed One said, satisfied the monks rejoice in the Buddha's word. Here the monks who rejoice, I'm not sure whether all the monks rejoice, whether those followers of Assaji and Punabbasu all rejoice or not. But from the way they spoke, apparently there's no record that they changed. So that is why I say it is where the Buddha is very patient, still taught them despite the fact they did not listen. But the teaching is there. Of course, this is long ago, probably sometime after the Buddha has taught, they might think carefully and then they might change. But the important thing is the teaching is given here to show us that the Buddha was very patient even with difficult monks who argue with him, who don't listen to him. Right? So not all suttas showed the Buddha as a very successful teacher, and there are like a dozen suttas where the audience does not convert. Okay, we have about 6 minutes of time to spare.
Okay, Sister Aisin.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah.
Sadhu,
Welcome,
Brother Piya,
Andrea.
for the Sutta teaching. Let me read out
Ratna,
this question.
can I hear? Can you hear me, Ratna?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
I can't hear you again. Oh dear.
You
There's
can't
something
hear
wrong with my
me.
speaker.
Can you hear Sister Aisin?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear us. Wait,
Ask to unmute. Oops. Can you hear Ratna? Or
Yes.
Exim, can you try? Can you talk?
Yes. Yeah. Can
Oh,
you hear
okay.
me?
I can hear a bit soft.
Soft.
Yeah.
How about now?
Yeah, can hear.
Can hear.
Yes.
Okay. Brother Piya, can you hear?
Okay, I can.
Okay.
Yes, okay, good.
The first question from Sister Huilin.
Okay.
In the page 18, there
Yeah.
is mention of he is not one with joyous wisdom nor quick wisdom. What is the difference between joyous wisdom and quick wisdom?
Okay. All right, this is quite technical. I'm not exactly sure. I think this is a type of refers to the type of arahat. I mean, those who are wise are also happy. That's one kind, one quality, if you like. And then there are, like Sariputta has got quick wisdom. Okay, so I think I'm interpreting it very directly from the words in that sense. So you find this is a list of wisdom of the arahats. They're happy and they're quick. They're able to understand things quickly. So, but in us, people who are not arahats, some of us, we listen, we are happy. So that's joyous wisdom. Others, they're quick in understanding. The two don't go together in most of us. But in arahats, they come as a set. Here, the Buddha is talking to Mahanama of the various qualities in terms of the 5 spiritual qualities also. So try and look up in the notes and see what else you can get, okay? Because this is something very detailed. That's the best I understand at the moment, okay?
Thank you, Brother Piya. Sister Helen mentioned that from one of the Dhamma talks, she heard the Dhamma speaker mention Venerable Sariputta likely is example of liberated by wisdom.
Yeah.
What is Brother Piya's view on this statement based on the Sutta knowledge?
No, the interesting thing, you notice what we studied today in the Sutta, wisdom is mentioned in all cases from Strimvena right up to the Arahat. There's always wisdom there of different levels. In simple terms, you have to understand and accept impermanence, suffering at least. And once you can see the nature of impermanence and suffering, we can say that is wisdom. To the extent is wisdom. But in the case of the Arahats, they go deeper, they can understand non-self also. So wisdom is always there. In all awakening, there is some level of wisdom. But in the case of certain kinds of string winners, like for most of us here, we will have faith. we say, well, I'm happy to, I understand that impermanence quite easily, and I accept it. I have no problem with it. I don't understand it very deep. I don't remember all the suttas, but I am satisfied that impermanence is real. So if you talk like that, you're talking through faith, and that also will work according to Anicca Cakkha Sutta. You reflect in this way and you live according to that understanding, which is wisdom, you will gain stream winning. So this is a beautiful allowance the Buddha gives us, even though we may not have deep wisdom like Sariputta, right? Because we're not talking about faith in a person, but we're talking about faith in true reality. It's a big difference here. Okay. All right. Go on.
Okay, thank you, Brother Piya. There's no more question in the chat box.
Okay.
Any brother or sister would like to unmute to ask your question? You may do so now.
We have only about 1 minute more. So do read up this sutta again. It's not an easy sutta. There are sections where you may want to, look into more detail. We will hear different teachers say different things, and they do not necessarily always be right. But even though they may be wrong, it doesn't mean the Dharma we hear is wrong. It simply means things are a little bit not so clear, out of focus, just like you see a star from far away. You got to focus your telescope a bit. So we build up on that. We slowly build up, right? To teaching Dharma is not that easy. So sometimes there are very difficult aspects. We have to kind of decide what it means for us at this point in time. So we are all progressing that way. That's why the Buddha say the Dharma is progressive, is gradual, because we build up by letting go of our ignorance and building up our wisdom. So that is up to you to build up the wisdom. Okay. All right. So
I have a question.
yes.
Can I ask?
Sure.
Okay, I'm asking about the 12-step discipleship. It says approach him, meaning approach the teacher. Here, sometimes we don't have a living teacher to approach to.
Yeah.
So how do we adapt ourselves?
Approach the
In
Dharma
this case?
then. We should approach the Dharma. We try to approach the Dharma. Sometimes by you can, for example, read the Ajahn Chah has got all these teachings put in books, and there are videos and tapes. So nowadays there are different ways of approaching the teacher through the teaching. That's another way. Yeah, because nowadays it's very hard to find a good teacher. Although let's say you go to temple, you don't always see good teachers, and you find some of the speakers themselves that do not know the Dharma very well, but they try. So we go there for fellowship, all right? So here, instead of the teacher, we take the Dhamma, follow the Garawa Sutta. We take the Dhamma, we approach the Dhamma, because now the Dhamma is present there in books, in videos, and what they call it, mostly books and videos are these two. And by reflecting, putting together the pieces that we learn, you must reflect on your own. The other parts still work, although the teacher part may be missing, right? That's why I say it's so wonderful if you find a good teacher to approach. But sometimes even a good teacher may not be enlightened, so they may not know everything. So that's another difficulty, right? So for example, when I wrote the ST 60.1F, I managed to, read some writings by really wonderful forest monks. They write about their own teachers, and that is very helpful. It teaches me a lot of things. So approach the Dhamma, even though you cannot approach the teacher, according to the Garawa Sutta. Okay, let's take a family photo.
Okay. why don't you answer the last question? There's
Yeah,
one more
there's
question.
a last question
Oh,
from
last
Sister
question.
Pamja.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. What's the last
Yeah,
question?
Brother Piya has Sotapanna has read the 3 factors.
Yeah, first 3 factors. The Sotapanna has overcome first 3 factors, and Sotapanna is the first stage of the path. And the Sotapanna will never fall back. Once you reach Sotapanna, you will progress. Maybe at the most 7 more lives to go, but 7 more lives can be very long lives. Okay, so but you will never fall back. Of course, you go through 7 more lives, you're going to suffer also. You see, for example, when you know Buddhism, a lot of people who don't like Buddhism, then you might suffer. So that is why we have to find a proper place to live, and must have spiritual friends also. That's why they are mentioned. And sometimes when you decide to follow the true path, you can be quite alone. But then you have to decide. You want to have false friends or you have true Dharma, right? So these are things we go along and we work for ourselves. That is why when we meet people who are truly good and happy and we talk with them, we also feel good and happy. That is why I always enjoy giving a class on Zoom like this, especially with international friends, right? We're talking about the Dharma here, and that's wonderful. Okay, any more last minute questions before we
Yeah,
go?
Piya,
Yes.
can you just tell us what are the 3 factors? Thank you.
Okay, the first factor is that of attachment to self-identity, identity view. In other words, we think of ourselves, but the worst case is narcissism. You identify yourself with your body, with your 5 aggregates, right? So it's a wrong view in terms of self. Basically here, the idea is that these body changes, the 5 aggregate changes, so you cannot really say this is me. We are changing all the time. We don't have self-identity view in that sense. You do have an identity, you have your name and address and so on, but you are not attached to it by becoming so self-important that no other people are important, like some politician who take advantage of others and so on. You don't have that kind of self-view. Number 2, you will not turn to outside sources to help, outside agency to solve your problem, because whatever problems you have comes from the mind. So you will have self-reliance, you will work for yourself to better yourself. You will not believe in all those magical things and charms and things like that, basically, even feng shui, you won't get caught up with these things. You won't rely on them. You're not troubled by those things. It takes courage to have this kind of faith. And the last one is you don't have doubt. Your mind is clear. When it comes to Buddha's teaching, when there are difficulties, you say, let me find out what Buddha is saying here. But some people, they will try to correct the sutta. Say, oh, probably the sutta is wrong. Something happened, mistake here, mistake there. But we should be curious and say, why does the sutta say this? Obviously, there must be a reason for this, and you find out what all that is about. So we let go of doubt by being curious, by finding out what really is the meaning here. We go on finding out. If we don't know now, it's okay, but we have faith that there is something right here in the Dhamma, in the suttas. So the 3 factors are self-identity view is broken, attachment to rituals and vows is broken, doubt is broken. When these 3 are broken, you are a stream winner, or the stream winner has these 3 wonderful qualities. Great faith, you naturally want to keep the precept, you treasure the precepts. You will never deliberately break the precept, and you be kind to people. I think all those wonderful qualities are there, but you're not perfect still. You may still have desires. You want to get married, you want to have success in business. It's quite normal because those, you're not arahat yet, so you still have all those ideas, Even the once returner also has all those ideas. Only the non-returner has overcome sensual desires. All right. So the Buddha. Sorry.
Sorry. So non-identity is considered as non-self, teacher. Yeah.
Part of it is non-self is a very, very deep teaching. Non-identity, non-self identity means you don't see something unchanging in any of the 5 aggregates: body, form, feeling, perception, formation, consciousness. You don't see something fixed in any of them, which is us, which is me, in other words. Okay. All right. So
Thank you.
Yeah, we're past time now. So taken photo already, Ratna?
No, not yet. We take now.
Okay, let's take a photo. All right, now comes the time when we will spend a bit of this moment to reflect on this wonderful time we spent together, 2 hours of renunciation. So this is your very good mental karma, including keeping precepts and so on. Reflect on this wonderful moment. May I be well, may I be happy, say that to yourself. And then direct all this wonderful energy to your relatives, your people who you care for. All right. And then finally, let us show our gratitude to the 3 jewels. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami. Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.